Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Norway Chess 2022, blah, 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 this tournament in Stavanger, yeah. Look, if you tuned into this recap and you're still not aware of the tournament format, I can't help you. If this happened to be the first video that you're watching about this chess tournament, it's 10 dudes in a room in Stavanger, Norway, and they're battling it out. They play a long game, and then after that, if that game is a draw, they sit down, they play 10-minute and 7-minute Armageddon style. Now, in this video, first of all, I just want to say I just woke up from a 2-hour afternoon nap. Nap was good, but if I say something, a bad joke, something, please don't hold it against me. I am in that post-nap phase where I don't even know my own name. I don't know what city I live in. It's crazy. This video features one of the most unfortunate and crazy blunders I have ever seen in my life. At this level in particular, not from your games. From your games, it's like, I'd be shocked if these blunders didn't happen. But it's a friendly reminder that we're all human, no matter what. And we're going to kick things off with this intriguing matchup, Vishy Anand versus Shahryar Mamedyarov. Vishy has been on a tear. He's been absolutely beating people to a pulp. He is winning every matchup of this event, including against Magnus, only losing to Wesley So. And he's in second place, and Mamedyarov is very close right after that. So it's kind of funny that we have a Petrov, because Mamedyarov could play for a win with black and try to overtake in the standings, but he decides I'm going to be solid. And the players play a complete sideline here. Like here, there are two main lines for white. Knight c3 is a very, very reliable weapon, doubling your pawns, but bringing out the bishops and then castling queenside. And the other weapon after knight takes e4 is just to play the move d4. Everything else is virtually considered just an absolute sideline, and Vishy plays bishop d3. Knight f6, and then castles bishop e7, and you can hardly say white is getting anything in terms of an advantage here. The pawn structure is obviously completely the same. They both just miss an e-pawn. In a perfect world, white wants to move these pawns to d4 and c4, and you might ask, why didn't white just, like, you know, go here and then like this? He could have, actually. I mean, technically, we could have had this position, except white has a pawn on d4. Instead of that, we have this position, and now white plays bishop f1. So we could have had this position, but instead we have this position. Is there any real difference? I got no idea. I don't think there is. Black plays d5, and now we have d4, and now we have identical kind of, you know, pawns in the middle of the board, and Vishy's trying to attack the queen side with c4. This is really the only way you can play against the Petrov defense, which is like solid and try to create a little imbalance and hope your opponent kind of holds your hand and you cross the street together, assuming you know that person. If you don't, that's really weird. Call the cops. Knight c3, knight c6, and all of this had been played before, actually, until knight takes c3. I think here, queen d7 was played in 2018 by Jan Krzysztof Duda against Grishuk in an online game. They played in the Speed Chess Championship, and it was queen d7 there. But in this game, Mamedyarov takes on c3. Actually, queen d7 is the best move, so it's funny that in a blitz game, he played better than Mamedyarov in a classical game. Giving white this kind of very solid central structure, it's just unnecessary. But whatever. I mean, black is not by any means like much worse. He just gives white this pawn structure. So Vishy develops his bishop, Mamedyarov develops his knight. Now Vishy plays bishop d3. Here Mamedyarov can take the knight and damage the structure. White can take back with the queen. Taking back with the pawn is a little dumb because your pawn is very weak. But if you take back with the queen and get this position, you know, structurally you're not doing too hot, but you have the bishop pair, you can advance, you have the open file, you can put some pressure. Mamedyarov just plays h6, he doesn't take on f3, and now Vishy boots him. So Vishy actually voluntarily weakens his king, and his logic is, well, now I never have to suffer the damaging of my structure. I will slowly improve my pawns, and, you know, the imbalance of the pawn will kind of lead to long-term complications. So we have takes, and Mamedyarov here doesn't just lazily slide over a rook, because see, there is this very annoying move g5, and believe it or not, white is using his open king as an asset, right? So Mamedyarov goes knight e7 with the idea to go after these dark squares that Vishy recently weakened. Vishy almost feels like he wants to put this pawn backwards, but he can't. So he plays bishop to d2, the rooks see each other, and now knight g6. Now obviously there is no knight h4, there is no knight f4, because if you play, for example, knight f4 in this position, you're not really ever mating me. My knight is very good, right? So knight g6, Vishy thinks for a bit here, and plays queen to b5. And the idea of queen to b5 is that you attack the rook and you attack the pawn. And for example, rook e1, white is in decent shape and quite happy. Vishy plays queen b5, and at this point, my friend texted this position to our group chat and said, oops. I was like, what? What is he, what? And then I realized, it's a oops indeed. Vishy just lost the game. And before we could even, like, discuss it, Vishy had resigned. Mamedyarov had returned to the board and resigned, and what happens next is really interesting. So I told my friends, I was like, I feel like Mamedyarov is going to be like, oh, I don't know why he resigned. And then I realized, you know, he's got 57 minutes, he's going to figure it out. He resigned, Anand, because queen takes knight. It's an unbelievable move. Queen takes knight. And when you take back, it's just mate. It's checkmate in the middle of the board. Just mate. Now you could say, well, he doesn't have to take it. Folks, what are we doing? I mean, it's mate, really, no matter what. I mean, you can delay this game. I mean, you actually have to be careful not to blunder a full rook. And even if you blunder the full rook, by the way, it's still mate. Just so you're clear, king f1 can be played, but then of course I can take, I can go here, I can win the rook back. So it's not mate in 2 necessarily, but it's mate in 2 or mate in like 6. Queen takes f3, an incredible idea. And the craziest thing about this, my friend pointed this out to me, queen takes f3 is a threat here, regardless. Which is just absolutely insane. This is still a threat. That is an unbelievable tactic. King f3, it's the same mate, and even if the queen takes, you go here and you win the queen back. So you just win a full piece. So this is just an unreal tactic. Now, does that mean that black is winning here? No. No, white just has to guard against that. White can play king g1 if you really want. You can play rook e4, which now you get a getaway, you know, for your king. You're not mated. Or king f3, excuse me, you get a getaway, right? Like, the rook is the shield for the king. But there's venom in this position. It's not without any venom. Queen f3 is an unbelievable move. Just one of the most absurd moves. You could probably even play queen f5. It's kind of ugly, but, I mean, queen b5, queen f3 is just unbelievable. Like, it's... Yeah, and that's it. And Mamedyarov is in second place. He just wins on the spot. He just completely wins on the spot. It's crazy. I mean, we're really all human, truly. I mean, the form that Vishy Anand was in, I mean, you heard me. I mean, I was praising him to no end. He was just like mowing down the opposition, and it happens. It just happens. It happens. I can't imagine what he feels like. I mean, I really, it's horrible. Like, listen, I feel like an idiot losing 3-minute games. Like when I'm playing online. Like sometimes I'm playing in Title Tuesday. I feel a horrible sense of self-hatred sometimes when I lose. I cannot imagine how Vishy feels. And I just wish him all the best. And I mean, he is the most experienced player in the field, okay? He's probably won and lost more games than any of those guys, so he knows how to get through it. But oh my, it's brutal. It's brutal. I feel for the guy, and I'm so sorry. And it happens. I mean, it really happens. So... yeah, Mamedyarov is now in clear second. We will see how Magnus does. Giri versus Tari was an interesting game. It's a matchup of the guys in the tournament with the last name of 4 letters. Duda is not playing. Yeah, I think Anish must have felt a little bit of jealousy, you know, because I uploaded the podcast episode with Tari right after he beat Magnus, and you know, I'm just kidding, but I'm sure that Giri was a guy, you know, I gotta beat this guy, I gotta ruin his tournament, and he goes for the London, which is, that's the reason you play the London is because the tournament is over in 1 round. This is the penultimate round. Just play the London, just get it over with, you know what I mean? Like, just get it over with. Like, what are we doing here? Just play the London. And we get an interesting position. You know, we get like bishop g4, black developing his pieces. And these guys are very capable of going far out in London territory. Like here, Anish plays bishop e2, and already, even though it's move 10, the position's almost never been played. So they're using the London just to get a position. They are not using the London to get an advantage. dc5, bishop c5. And here, I think after just castles or something, we have only 2 games in the database, and both of them have been played, actually. by the same Polish grandmaster. I think it was Pakleza played like this, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken, but I think there was two games played by the same person. But here, Giri plays g4. So if we back up a little bit and just address like h3, apparently the best move after h3 is like you can play c4, queen d1, and go back to f5. This is what the machine likes. It likes to take space and play for b5. But white is always going for this bishop, and you can kind of see Anish. You know, it's like Benji with when food is nearby. Like, he just never learns his lesson, right? I mean, he follows us across the house, and he's trying to get a piece of the food. And that's exactly what happens. And black is undeniably solid here, but white is better. And if your London prep is extremely good, which Anish is, right, he continues playing all the best moves. So he strands the knight on the edge of the board and gets his bishop out of the way. Now the knight on h5 is not really playing, and black is sort of stuck in a weird spot where he's very close to equalizing, and he's, he's playing interesting moves. But we see Anish already lining up the cannons here. King b1. Anish, by the way, has played every top engine move. 17 moves of perfect prep. Black's best moves are now knight a5 to go knight c4, as well as bishop to d6, trading off this powerful bishop. We do see that move. Anish takes, which is once again the best move. And here, white has to think on his own. Computer likes rook c1, which is... I can't even be paid enough to tell you what the point of that move is. Like, I really don't understand why you would go rook c1. And it also just likes h4, just kind of slowly improving the position, letting black make a move. But almost every plan here features the move rook c1. Anish plays c4, which is by far the human move. Sorry, did I say c4 is the human move? Is that what I said? Yeah, that's what I said. For a second, I thought I said rook c1 was the human move. This is what I mean, afternoon nap. My brain, c4 is a very human move. The point of c4 is that if you take on c4 like this, I have knight c4. This is a very beautiful idea. I hit your queen, and if you take my knight thinking you hit the queen back, queen b7, and the rook is hanging and the queen is hanging, and you say, well, rook b8! Yeah, then I take, and then I take, and then I take, and then I take. And by the way, your knight is still in jail. The knight, this is the whole point. The only reason any of this opening works, I just want you to understand, is because the knight gets stuck on h5. So all the way back here, when Anish was studying this position with Leela or Stockfish or whatever engine he uses, the whole idea of DC and G4 is that this is how crazy the engine prep is at that level. The whole idea is to strand the knight on the edge of the board in all ensuing middle games. That is the point. All right, black is kind of playing without a knight. And as the game develops, we sort of see this in action. C4, though, as you plug it into Stockfish begins getting convinced that this is the best move. It loves this move. It hates the fact that there's constantly tactics on the queen. Knight a5 is one idea by black to try to win the pawn back, but this is just too scary because takes, here, the knight moves somewhere, and you just literally get a position where your knight does not play at all. It does not play. And if you ever play f6, I'm going to take g6. So maybe the computer has a way to hold. Tari's not a computer. And Tari decides to go for this position, but he's still playing without a knight. Anish literally took his knight off the board and said, come and get it, because if you try to get it, we're fighting. And Tari's like, damn, I kind of don't want to get in a fist fight. But he took my knight. What the heck? I can't do anything. Now, if you play f6, this is weak. And the G file immediately opens. So what do you do with black? Well, you play. I mean, honestly, that's look at queen a3. This is such a scumbag move. Voluntarily damaging his structure because the other guy doesn't have a knight. He just doesn't have a knight. And Anish understands that. He doesn't care that he damages his structure. Anish could even take this. The guy has no knight. Now you say, well, Levy, that's very simple. Just f6. Folks, who cares? You still don't have a knight. The knight is permanently locked away. So it's brutal. I mean, it's brutal what Anish is doing here. And I'm going to keep clicking the forward arrow because that is the rest of this game. The rest of this game is Anish improving his position. The knight is in jail. The knight does not move. White is just looking to pick his spot. He needs to trade some pieces off. He needs to not lose any material. And now look at Tari. He's actually getting counterplay. He's finally getting counterplay. But, and I think here Anish missed a win. I think knight a5 was winning, if I'm not mistaken. Fe3 and knight c4, counterattacking the queen. Something like this was the idea. Yeah, I mean, Tari actually got to a point where he could reliably say he has counterplay. The computer here thinks it's zeros. He fought all the way back. All right, but it's low time. There's not a lot of time on the board, right? On the clock. And Anish parts ways. He takes the knight, but not for free. So Anish's entire advantage is gone, completely gone. Tari totally outplaying Anish from a worse position. And there's some tactics, and he's low on time. He has to make sure to not lose his nerves. I mean, he's equalized. He's done the difficult part. I think somewhere here after knight e6, rook f5, just ultra solid, guards everything, cold-blooded, but I'm sure he didn't have a lot of time on the clock. And, oh, wife messaged me. Let's see if it's important. All right. It is important. But we've got a couple of recap games to get to. Don't worry. I'll finish that. Rook takes f2, and, here white has no advantage. Black has no advantage, but black has no time. And Anish suddenly begins creating problems. This king is a little bit suspicious, but can run out. Like, the king can actually be safe. Rook e2, and it does run out. Knight f6, king h4. And now Aryan Tari has to find rook b2, rook e2, rook e3. It's just a draw. Rook e1. Doesn't matter where the king goes. Does not matter. The king cannot get close. If the king goes to c2, rook e2, you think the king is running. Rook g2, rook g6 with knight e5. Those are the two defensive ideas. And you save the game. And Aryan does not find it. He allows the king to walk to d1 from where it is safe. He tries to get the draw this way. Anish plays rook e7, captures king d2, and all of a sudden the pawn is queening. Absolutely tragic. Absolutely tragic. I'm responding to wifey. Wow. My messaging app did not send. When I woke up from my nap, I'm gonna have some fun here before I tell you about the summary of this game. When I woke up from my nap, I was very sleepy, and I wrote, "Wifey, come smooch me." For the children, smooch means pat on the head. And the app broke. I don't know what happened. It just wasn't sending the message, so I went downstairs. And the messages just got delivered. So Lucy was like, what? What do you mean come smooch you? You're in the middle of recording. And I was like, oh my God, that's kind of hilarious. I'm like, yeah, give me a sec. Let me finish this recap. So that's the little adventures of married life. Yeah, this is tragic. I mean, listen, I'm not cheering against Anish, but I am cheering for Tari because he's having the best tournament of his life, and he outplayed Anish from a position that I probably would have just went to the bathroom and not come back. You know what I mean? I would have got up from the board, just went outside. They're playing in Stavanger, go take a walk in Stavanger. 9 people probably live in Stavanger, so they would have recognized you and told you to go back to the playing hall. But absolutely brutal. I'm gutted for the guy. It sucks. And I hope he bounces back. And now it's time for the Armageddon matchups. Magnus Carlsen versus Maxime Vachier-Lagrave was an intriguing matchup because it's always interesting to see what Magnus is going to do against MVL. Because against MVL, he likes to go for d4 a lot and try to beat him in the Grunfeld, but it didn't work in the Classical. But they go right back to it. And in the Classical, Magnus played bishop b5 check, which is not a very common approach at all, because you're not supposed to really allow this. But Magnus goes for a very similar position as he had in the Classical, so completely undeterred, and plays knight f3, castles, and gets a very, very big boy center. I mean, his center is very healthy. And if you gave him a couple of more moves, he would play d5 and just be completely winning here. But that's not the way the Grunfeld works. The Grunfeld works about, massive tactical fight in the middle of the board with just obscure kind of pressure on different stuff and piece coordination. And it's a fascinating imbalanced position. So we sort of chill out here. Black has a 2-on-1 and good stability in the middle, and Magnus is attacking on the king side a little bit as he begins the transfer of pieces. So he plays bishop f6, queen f4, knight g6, queen g3, and if you give Magnus 2 turns, the pawn gets to h5 and the game is over. Like, he will play h4, h5, MVL can resign. So MVL understands that and plays king h7. Right, he's ready. h4, he's gonna take, play rook g8, and completely Uno reverse card the attack on Magnus. Magnus here sacks a pawn in the middle with d5. All right, here we go. Let's have some fun. Pawn takes d5. Rook. The sacrifice of a pawn to open the 4th rank. Okay. Bishop f6, ef6, by the way, is just much better for black. And queen d8 or queen e6, looking for this pawn, apparently. But it's Armageddon, so instead of that, we play the simple move, trying to trade rooks. Magnus trades, and e6. But in this position with the hanging rook, black can just take, actually. Because here, where's the attack? And the pawns are coming, right? Believe it or not, after the move e6, the best move for black is the shocking queen c8. The point of queen c8 is that, let's say white plays bishop takes g7, there is the absolutely savage f4. And the point is that wherever the queen goes now, I just take back, and you've pinned yourself, bozo. And if you go to h3, you've still pinned yourself, bozo. Right? And my pawns are now super strong. I play rook b5, c3, whatever. So queen c8 and f4, I think if you play that as a human, you get drug tested. Instead of that, you know, MVL goes for this endgame where it's a bishop and 2 pawns for the rook, and he's still better, but his position does feel a little bit loose, Now, he is better, though. Knight f4, he's going for some crazy complications here. Magnus has to play massive defense. Removes the queens, okay? c3, knight b4, and I mean, you're basically in a time scramble endgame versus one of the best endgame players of all time, if not the best endgame player of all time, and MVL decides here he's taking the knight. This is a massive decision, because if white can survive, he's going to be in very good shape. a3, rook b8, MVL just trapped his knight, Now, it's not winning. It's not winning, apparently. Black can play f5, f4. So by the time the king gets here to trap the knight, d3 and d2 and c2, and black is winning. MVL is not losing, but he accidentally traps his knight and completely freaks. He doesn't find the right defense. King f6, king b3, knight b4. He's trying to make a run for it. a2, c2. But the rook is on the 1st rank, but it's still a draw. Black can still defend the position, but he doesn't do it. And the game is over. Now, I don't know if MVL lost on time. That might have been what happened. MVL might have run out of... Yeah, MVL flagged. That's what happened. MVL just ran out of time. But the way he could have drawn this... I mean, it was a draw. Like, it still was a draw. King f5, and then if king d3, h2, so the rook is kind of paralyzed, and now white, like, can give checks or whatever, but the king is going to go to g3, g2, and white will win this pawn. So, for example, king d4, king g3, no, this doesn't work because this is with tempo, but you have, like, rook a1, this is always check, and, it's a draw because it's a draw. I don't really know how best I can describe that. Both guys are going to get the final pawn. But Magnus wins. MVL runs out of time. It might have still been a draw at the end, but Armageddon is a nasty thing. It's a nasty thing. 2 more Armageddon games. Timur Rajabov. This one was fascinating because a knight went to d4 early. It was like a 4-knight Spanish where he just gave him the bishop pair. And, white just got a very healthy position, like 2 pawns in the middle. This reminds me of the game, Giri Rajabov, when Rajabov was black. I mean, white just has a very healthy position. That's what everything is good in white's position. He begins to put some pressure on that side of the board. He even trades the queens, because this simple move, and Wang Hao is just going to lose a pawn. And that's what happens. Wang Hao loses a pawn, and he's relying on the opposite colored bishops to defend this position. Beautiful structural play there. Rajabov dominating the d-file, so there's not going to be any rook trades, and now using more breaks to remove the defense of the black position. He's transferring his knight over, defending it with the king, and Wang Hao is trying to create some counterplay, but if you want to win any endgame involving rooks, you should really try to trade one of them. That's exactly what Rajab does. This is a permanent liability. Black tries to defend it and create some more counterplay, but that knight goes back and around, covering that, and now Rajab is 2 pawns up. I mean, making it look absolutely effortless in this game. A beautiful game by Rajab, and it takes a little bit of converting, but he gets the job done. And I mean, yeah, games like this and the game where Giri beat Rajab, it's really like just a nice example of how exactly you play a position like this, where you have the dominant center, everything is developed, what's the next step of your position, and you know, you target the enemy king, you get your pieces on their most active squares, and you create threats on actual pieces and squares. And Rajab gets the win in the Armageddon portion. The only reason I'm kind of speedrunning through these last 2 games is because they don't have a massive implication on the standings of the event. Kind of we sort of have our like top 3, top 4 with Anand, Mamedyarov, and Magnus. And we will talk about the standings. Wesley So versus Topalov is the last remaining Armageddon, and it got real weird real quick because Queen D2 got played, which is some weird way to break the symmetry. And Topalov took on C3. Like, what? That's an absurd move to damage the structure. But, like, why? He just gave up such an important piece, and then he went long castles. He castled into the open B file. Do not play chess like this. He can play chess however he wants. You cannot play chess like this. Topalov is like... I mean, he's playing an unbelievable style here with white just narrowing down, but he saves somehow. This completely ludicrous position is completely okay. And Topalov even managed to blockade and then trade off. Look at Wesley So, by the way, sacrificing a rook to try to, like, open up the B file or something. I mean, I don't even know what he's doing. And Topalov doesn't take it. He doesn't even take the rook. He removes the English bishop, and now he's better. So Topalov... playing some inspiring chess. You know how we say, like, turns back the clock or whatever? My guy is playing some wild chess in this Armageddon game. And, yeah, Wesley is getting frustrated. He's like, what is going on? I've been met with a total blockade on the queen side. I'm trying. And finally, Wesley sacks. I mean, he's been trying to sack that rook for ages. He sacrifices it, goes knight b3, and takes on c5. And, I mean, this is a wild game. This is a completely wild game. We have now d4 with h6 hanging, e4 under fire, a5 under fire, rook f6 under fire. That's under fire. We have e3, okay, from Topalov. d5. Neither side is taking a pawn here. You can take this, you can take this, you can take this. But he goes here, and Topalov's like, what about this? And Wesley's like, yeah, what about this? And Topalov's like, hello, I'm about to get a second queen, my guy. And nobody can stop that pawn. This is the only piece. But now rook d5, and I'm threatening to take this at some point. Right, so Wesley goes here, but now I go all the way down. That pawn on e2, oh my goodness, it somehow, it snuck through everybody's defenses, and it's on e2 now. Queen takes g6, queen takes b3, and Wesley's losing. So a crazy, crazy game, and the king goes to the corner, and now you win the pawn, but, I mean, queen goes back to b7, rook h6, and yeah, 3 of Wesley's 4 pieces are on the back rank. This is not going to work. Takes on e1, and Wesley resigns. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. The way Topalov played this with bishop c3 and going long is, I've never seen that before. That is commendable. God bless him. What a game. Yeah, I mean, after that, you go out for a beer to celebrate. Doesn't even matter that, you know, you won in the Armageddon. So Topalov winning a nice game. And that brings us to the end of the penultimate round of Norway Chess. Magnus in first place with 15, then it's Mamedyarov with 14.5. It will be a 2-man race to the conclusion of the event. Anand could theoretically catch them if he wins in Classical tomorrow. Hopefully he bounces back. That's all for now. I'm going to go play some tennis and drink some coconut water. You will have a great rest of your day. Get out of here.